Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock and this is City of Heroes. We are with Dr. Cyclone, who's level 15. We have 4,000 XP, which is about a third of a level to go to get to, a little more than that, 40% of a level to go and get to level 16 in our next superpower. I'm not sure what it'll be. We'll see what's on offer. Meanwhile, we're doing the, what is it? The Clockwork Captive story arc, which is one of the low level ones, sort of teens. And here we go. I do want to mention a couple of things. So you may have noticed by the time this posts that my posting frequency has reduced. There are several reasons for this, and I do want to explain it, and it will probably continue for a while. So one of the reasons why I had such a great, pretty much daily posting frequency for my stalker is that I began um, that series over the holidays and or shortly before the holidays. And as you know, if you've watched those videos, I had Achilles tendonitis in my right, i.e. my driving foot. And I couldn't drive up to my sister's for the holidays, so I was kind of bummed about that, and I didn't really have anything to do because I hadn't been planning to stay home. So I was packed and stuff, and then I just realized I wasn't going to be able to drive up there. I went to the doctor and they took x-rays and everything, and they said, really, you shouldn't drive on it for, 2 straight days like that. It's only going to make it worse. I mean, he didn't forbid me from doing it, but he said it was going to make it worse. And I was really just concerned that I was going to get part way up and be in some part of a highway, which does happen on that route where it's really hard to stop. And then I was going to get, now I'm in this huge traffic jam, and it's going to be an hour and 45 minutes before I can get off the road and try to rest my ankle, and that just wasn't going to work. I was in some pain. It wasn't like scale 1 to 10, it wasn't a 10, but it was a 5 or a 6, and having it be a 5 or a 6 for, hours at a time is not fun. And then my other concern was, if I overtax my ankle on the way up, could I get into a situation where I literally can't drive home, and now I'm stuck at my sister's house, and the semester starts and I can't get back. So I just didn't want to get into all that, and I was home, and I was playing 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 times a day COH, and I was recording those episodes. So I had a huge backlog of episodes that I had generated, and even thumbnails. I don't know if any of you noticed, nobody's mentioned it. Most of you probably don't care, but I used to just make a single thumbnail for the entire season or the entire series and just repeat that over and over again. And what I started doing over the holidays, and found out that I enjoy doing it, so I've kept it up, is actually rewatching parts of the videos and trying to find a spot where I could grab a little screenshot, and then I was putting a little summary or phrase on the thumbnail to indicate by the thumbnail as well as the title of the video what the video is about. One of the things I've noticed is a lot of times when people do that, I do actually use the thumbnail title more because it's more noticeable than the actual text title underneath the video. I sometimes notice that first and then look at the video title. So I don't know if other people do that, but since I do, I thought it might be helpful to other folks. So, I took the time to make all of those thumbnails, as well as, playing many hours over the course of those couple of weeks. And as a consequence, I had this huge backlog of both thumbnails and videos built up for, like basically the first, I don't know, 2, 3 seasons. It went a long way, right? So I was a month or so beyond the the posting of the video each time, which is why I couldn't directly answer most comments in the actual video. Or if I was answering the comments, I would say things like, so and so posted this about a month ago, right? And I tried to answer people in the actual comments a little bit because I knew that you guys were, if you wanted your answer, you're going to have to wait a long time to get it on screen. And so I'll go ahead and answer it on video, or go ahead and answer it in the comments so that you can at least get your answer. And I am running out of endurance, so we're going to have to just be a little slow here. However, after that, the school year started. I could not play 3 or sometimes even 2 episodes a day And so as a consequence, the backlog started catching up, right? And so I've been slowly catching up to myself little by little. And by the end of the Stalker series, I had only shot four episodes, or maybe I think about 4 episodes of this. And so I was now only 4 or 5 days ahead, and we've since now pretty much caught up. So this is, I believe, episode 7. I've already shot episode 6, and I just posted episode 5 today. So episode 6 will come up tomorrow, and this should go up the next day, maybe. But I probably will put like a 2-day gap in between so that I don't end up with no videos to post and days going by. But it's probably going to be every other day or maybe every 3 days now for a while, because we're down to crunch time in the academic year, which means I'm not going to be able to play as much as I was. And um, the other issue is that I started playing XCOM again. I'm having a blast with that game. So yeah, that's taking up some of my game time. And that has nothing to do with City of Heroes. I just really like XCOM, and I enjoy playing it. I actually I did it on a whim, because I've been playing these tactical kind of turn-based board games that have a lot in common with a game like XCOM. Um, I've had the urge to play some XCOM. Now, I tried once. I actually was going to do a Let's Play of it, right, like this. I was going to record it, and I actually started recording the first tutorial mission. Now, I don't really need the tutorial, but I was going to kind of do it as a little tutorial for people who might want to know how to play the game. And I'm no, I will say now, I am no expert in XCOM. I'm barely competent, but I know a lot about how it works, and I have a lot of fun with it. And I was going to ask you guys to help me create nicknames for the soldiers and stuff. And I played the first tutorial mission, and I think I might have mentioned this in one of my COHs, but it was a long, long time ago. That game came out when Windows 7 was out, I believe. And so I tried running it on Windows 10, and it did not work. So what happened is I played through the first part of the tutorial mission, and then you get to a cutscene or something, and it just black screened, and I had to reboot my computer. There was no way to recover without a full-on hard reboot, and that's never a good thing. And then I kind of Googled it, and I looked it up on Steam and stuff, and it turned out that a lot of people were having this problem, and it was a known issue that XCOM just doesn't work with Windows 10. Sometimes you just get a blank screen, and nobody really knew how to fix it. And so I didn't know if I was going to be able to run it again. I really haven't tried in a very long time since I did that. I have not attempted it again. I just wrote it off. But I decided to try it one more time, and it turned out so far it has worked. Now, I don't know if it's going to work forever. I don't know if it's going to get me all the way to the end. I don't know. But so far, it has worked, and so I've been playing that quite a bit. So I don't know if I will play COH every day, because some days I might not have time for both, and I might decide, since I've been playing an awful lot of COH over the last few months, it might be time to play some other games and play some XCOM and that kind of stuff instead. Generally, I do it in addition to, like tonight, I'm playing this game, and then I'm going to play XCOM after I shoot this episode. But there may be other nights when I just don't have time for that, and some nights I may do COH, and some nights I may do XCOM. So that'll be another reason. And so my guess is that you're going to be seeing, a couple episodes, maybe 3 episodes a week, rather than every single day. So I do apologize for that if people have been looking forward to it every day. I can't actually imagine that very many people have. Where's this last clockwork? I can't imagine that very many people have an hour plus a day every day to watch me play COH, but maybe some people do. A few people have said that they don't watch, but they just leave it on in the background. Oh, there we go. They just leave it on in the background and listen. I suspect that those people might, and you're gonna have to tell me, and you can tell me now. I'll get this the response from you in a few days after shooting this. Um, I would assume that the people who are listening while they do other things like cleaning the house or playing other games, or one or two people have told me they play COH while listening to me talk about this stuff, which is cool. I like that. That's awesome. All the more, you can't have too much COH, definitely. I would imagine that people who are just listening and aren't watching probably don't need to hear a lot about what's going on in the game itself and might prefer more of the ranty type stuff, like when I talk about what it means to be a failed GM, or I talk about power gaming, or I talk about the OGL scandal in D&D, or something like that. Might be more interesting if you're cleaning or cooking while you're listening than me saying, I'm going to attack this guy with this attack, and oh, let's turn on build up, and so on. But you tell me if that's true. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Where are these guys? Okay, so that guy doesn't exist. Oh, there's a COG patrol. Again, if I could go back in time and get the COH devs to do certain things to improve the QOL, the quality of life of this game, I think one of my tops would be to any mission that is defeat all must not have patrols. Because it's too easy to miss a patrol while you go around the corner and have no idea where it is. And then you've cleaned out the whole mission. There's been no chance that you're going to face plant. It's not hard, but you can't finish the mission because you don't realize that you left something around the corner and that he snuck around one corner while you were going the other direction and you didn't see him. I mean, I just find that really aggravating, and I would say to them, you need to ban patrols from defeat all missions. You can either have a patrol or you can have a defeat all. You cannot have both because it's too aggravating. Okay. Next step is to go to Boomtown and look for the kidnapped victim. So let's do that. So if you do prefer the rants while you're listening, and you'd like me to do more of that, I have to apologize. I don't particularly have anything to really rant about today. I'm all ranted out from talking about telekinesis in Savage Worlds, and talking about champions, and talking about failed GMs, and GMs who quit, and failed players, and all of that stuff. I don't really have that much else to say about those sorts of things. So if also I will say this: if now that we're very close on time, so that you can make a suggestion to me and I can do the suggestion in a matter of days, if there is a topic related to video games, role-playing games, or computer role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, video games in general, MMOs, although keep in mind this is the only MMO I've played in many, many years, so anything modern about MMOs I probably don't know about. The sorts of things I talk about on this channel. Education if you want, although my guess is most people aren't that interested in that who watch this channel. I just talk about it sometimes because I am an educator. Anything like that, as long as it is not political. If you have an idea for something you'd like me to rant about or talk about, feel free to post suggestions of topics. If there's some new role-playing game trend that I'm not aware of, and I haven't mentioned, and you want to make me aware of it, feel free. If you notice some RPG horror stories, feel free to post it. Tell me which one it is that I can go read it myself. Summarize it. Give me a little one sentence. There's a horror story on RPG Horror Stories written by this poster that is all about, I don't know how the GM murdered his character because he went out for a smoke break or something like that, and you want to get my thoughts on it, and you'd like to have a rant about it, feel free. If you don't want to hear any more rants, tell me that too. I don't have to rant. If there's other topics you want me to talk about, if you want me to hold forth on anything in particular, again, nothing political. Don't ask me about that. Not going to do it. Nothing real world, right? Gaming stuff, I'll talk about. Now, if there's some gaming politics in the way that OGL happened, I'll happily talk about that, right? Because that's on topic for this channel. So if you want me to talk about something that TSR or Wizards of the Coast or what is Pathfinder, Paizo, or Pinnacle Games, or one of these guys have done that's controversial, as long as it doesn't veer into politics. If you start getting into things like whether Wizards of the Coast is quote unquote woke, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Okay, because that's political and I don't want to go there. But if it's game stuff and it's company stuff and it's specifically about like changes they're making to D&D or something like that, I will be, rules changes. I will be happy to talk about that. But I'm not going political on this channel, so I won't rant about that. I want no part of that. There's enough of that in every other channel in the game in YouTube. We don't need it here. Talk about movies. I don't mind talking about movies like Star Wars and stuff. I'll talk about that as long as, again, there's not anything political. Some of the talk about movies has gotten very political lately. I'm not going there, so please don't ask me to do that. Speaking of movies, I guess I could just mention this real quickly. Oh, I'm so frustrated because I've been too swamped. I love Deadlands, but I almost wish Deadlands week hadn't been this past Saturday because Project Hail Mary, the movie, came out, and I absolutely loved that book. And it looked to me like they seem to have captured a lot of the book in the previews. Although I was actually really ticked off that I feel like the previews spoiled it. Like there was stuff in the book that you didn't know until 10 chapters in, and they actually show you some of it in the previews. And I'm like, why are you showing this? That's spoilers. Like it didn't spoil it for me. I read the book. But if I'm going to go with a friend who's never read the book, now that friend is gonna know like what certain things look like before you should. And I won't say any more about it because spoilers, and the movie just came out. Don't watch the previews. If you're interested in seeing that movie, just go see the movie. I haven't seen it. If the movie is faithful to the book, it will be a good movie because it was a great book. I really enjoyed it. I will say this, speaking of the book, so we can, maybe not a rant, but we can chat about this. So I really enjoy Andy Weir's writing. I think he's an enjoyable writer. He is not a prose, what do you want to call it? He is not a prose genius, right? He's not a wordsmith. I think he'd probably be the first person to admit it, but he's not trying to be, because his stories are written as sort of like interior monologues and often journals, right? So in the Martian movie, they did a really good job of this. In the book, it was a written journal of Mark Watney, the astronaut who got stuck on Mars. But in the movie, they made it like a vlog where Matt Damon was saying the journal entries out loud. But one way or another, they were journal entries. And there was this one guy who had not read any of Andy Weir's books. He's 3 that I've read. Is it Artemis or whatever, the one about the moon? I didn't like that one as much. It was good, but it wasn't great. So it was Project Hail Mary, Artemis, and The Martian. And of the 3, 2 of them have been I could not put them down. They were so much fun. And a lot of it was me being curious about what was going to happen next. He's very good at writing stories that make me curious. And I enjoy that as a reader. And so, and I feel like there are a lot of writers who write dramatically better prose than Andy Weir, objectively so, that I am not curious what's going to happen next. So I just stop reading, or I don't read very quickly. But his books, I read them in a few days because I'm curious what's going to happen next. And he's a very good science fiction writer when it comes to that. But again, he writes his stories as journal entries, right? It's sort of like Brandon Sanderson was saying there was some novella. It sounds really interesting. I think it was a novella where the whole entire novella is written as forum posts and people responding to the forum posts. And I said, what a cool idea. Why didn't I get that idea? I like to write and stuff, and I'm one of these people who was on forums. I don't know how many thousands and thousands of words. I've probably written a novel just on the D&D Beyond forum, right? And I thought, how cool would it be? You could have a forum moderator being a jerk on the forum. You could have people getting banned. I mean, I could see a really cool story evolving from a forum. I never got the name of the book. I would like to try it. So if anybody knows the name of that book or one like it, doesn't have to be that book. If you know of a book that was written as a series of forum posts, I would be really interested to read it and see how it was done because it sounds cool. So in a similar vein to forum posts, Andy Weir's stories are written as blogs or journal entries. So there's a certain stream of consciousness to the writing. There's a certain informality. There are certain sort of verbal tics and figures of speech that you're going to get because, like that. I mean, I've noticed that about. Am I hearing? I'm hearing another glowy. I've noticed that about my own journal writing. I write certain turns of phrase that, unnecessary extra words. I use actually a lot. It's actually annoying. Well, can I just say it's annoying? Right? And if I'm writing a novel, I'm going to edit that out. But I don't edit my journal. Right? The journal doesn't get edited. And so it doesn't get cleaned up. Now, I'm not saying Andy Weir didn't need to edit his books. Of course he does. But he doesn't necessarily need to make the journal sound like it was edited by a professional editor because why would it be? And so anyway, this writer who had never read Andy Weir was taking several people who read his books didn't think they were that well written, and they posted wildly out of context clips, just snippets of just a sentence or two. And this guy was like, "Man, this is such amateurish writing," and I'm like, "Well, it's kind of supposed to be because it's a journal, right? It didn't come off that way when I was reading it as amateurish. It came off as a journal entry, which is what it's supposed to be." So yeah, I really enjoyed the books, and I didn't find them amateurish at all. Now, I don't think they're not Shakespeare, but they're not supposed to be. It's supposed to be somebody's journal, just like the forum posts would probably have a lot of slang in it, some leet speak. I mean, if you're doing gaming forums, right? It would be inaccurate to have a gaming forum where everybody's writing like Dickens. Unless you're doing some sort of a weird steampunk gaming forum that takes place in the 1890s, then maybe people would write like Dickens on a gaming forum. That actually might be a really cool story to read, right? To imagine how, if there had been forums back in the day, to imagine Herman Melville and Dickens and Poe and some of these other characters, some of these other writers, Jane Austen, people from the 1800s. Imagine them arguing with each other and flaming each other on forums. I bet you would not be able to find anybody be a better flamer than somebody like Dickens. I bet he would be just a master at flaming people because he's a very good writer, right? Or go back even further in time and have Shakespeare doing it. Man, can you imagine getting flamed by William Shakespeare? It'd be hilarious and brutal. Yeah, that actually might be a really cool story to write. I wouldn't want to write it. I'm not able to write in the style of other people. And we've leveled up. We're level 16 now, so we get to pick our next power. And we're going to get a bunch of cogs coming out here. That's alright. We will beat them up. So yeah, if you want to talk about books, we can talk about books. We can talk about movies. We could talk about role-playing games. Just no politics, guys. No real world stuff. No real world crap. All right. My position on that is that will pollute this channel. This channel has been completely free of that. Um, the real world is annoying enough in our everyday lives. There's no reason to take this thing that's just fun and ruin it with real world garbage. So I won't do any requests for that. But if you have something you'd like me to talk about in terms of gaming, feel free. I'll be happy to oblige if it's something that I feel comfortable, and I feel like I can. The other bit is I'm going to have to feel like I can actually contribute something useful to the conversation. There are lots of times when I read stuff or watch stuff by Luke Hart or one of these other channels, and I think I should rant about it. And sometimes they even start a rant about it. And these are the ones where I say, like, oh, I maybe even don't mention it. I just, excuse me, I just don't post it. I record it, and it's rambling, and I don't go anywhere with it, and I hate it. And the reason I hate it is because I don't really have anything new to say about it. And so, you know, I'll try if somebody's got a gaming or um, a video gaming or tabletop gaming or role playing game, war games. Like, I'll try to do a rant. I'll think if I can think of one and if there's something useful for me to say, but I can't guarantee that I'm going to come up with anything you guys want to listen to. But feel free to make suggestions. Like, I wouldn't have asked of that in the previous series, not because I didn't want to do it, but because um, I I knew we were like a month off, and so anybody who made a suggestion in early February, I wouldn't be able to do the rant until early March, and it's kind of too late by then. But now you guys are all mostly caught up, and so there's no reason why, if you have a suggestion of something to talk about, that I can't do that. And I'll be happy to do it. I don't really have a backlog of topics. I've talked about certain things so many times that, you know, I don't know that I want to talk about them again. But if there's a new angle, I don't mind trying to do another rant. All right, let's see what we have for our next level. Okay, so I like more toggles ain't gonna work right now. I mean, but this is the Mez defense, isn't it? We got to take it. We're not going to leave it on all the time, but we got to take it because I can't stand being knocked down, and I'll just turn it on when I'm taking a lot of Mez and leave it on. How are we doing on time, guys? Let's see. 28 minutes. So I'm going to pause it here, and I will be right back. All right, we're back. So one thing I actually wanted to mention to you guys, because you might find it interesting since this is a superhero game, is that I make XCOM a kind of a superhero game too. So how do I do that? Well, if you've never played the game XCOM, in XCOM, I got a new contact. Okay, in XCOM, oh, we're staying in Alice Park. You get soldiers, and you're fighting aliens, and the soldiers, obviously, they're from different countries, and they have names, right? First and last name. And when they start out, they're just recruits. And then after they do a battle or so and they get some XP, they become squaddies, members of the squad. And squaddies get a specialty. So recruits just are generic, but squaddies can specialize into heavy weapons or assault or medic, like support, or sniper. I think those are the 4 types. And they use specialized different weapons, and they have different abilities, and it's very cool. And then you decide, or do you want 2 support on this mission, or do you want 2 snipers, or do you want more heavies? Once you have enough of them, and as they level up, they go from squatty to corporal, I don't know why they don't call it private, but from rookie to squatty to corporal to, I don't remember, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, colonel. And they level up and they get some. You usually have a choice of two different abilities you can um, that you can give them. And usually what happens is I try to have one squatty go down one side of the tree and one squatty go down the other side of the tree as they level up, um, so that you get either one and you just choose which one you want. I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but that's what I usually do. So one of the cool things is after they hit, I think it's sergeant rank, they get a nickname, and usually the nickname there must be a database of like 100 of these, and they just pull out a nickname like Boss, right? So it'll be John Boss Smith, or if you got some kind of a sniper sharpshooter guy, it might be um, Bill Deadeye Jones or Sarah Long Range, Williams or something. So, and of course, if they're from other countries, it might be a Russian name or a Chinese name or an African name or a Brazilian name. So what I did is, the thing is, I always had trouble remembering who was who and which ones were the ones that I wanted to put on the squad and everything, and they all kind of look the same. And so what I started doing was customizing. You can customize them, and you can go in and change the name, the first and last name, which is really cool. And then you can change the nickname. And so what I started doing was just using the names of either Marvel or DC superheroes. So like the first guy that was a heavy might be Clark Kent, and then when he gets a nickname, I would change it to Superman, right? And then the sniper guy might be Bruce Wayne, and when he gets a nickname, I change it to Batman, right? And then maybe the next one is a female, and she's an assault or whatever, and I change her name to Diana Prince, and then her nickname is Wonder Woman, right? They do have a character limit, so some names are really hard to do. But I've done like Legion of Superheroes, I've done Justice League, and I've done the Marvel superheroes like X-Men and Avengers and stuff. And I actually think it's really fun to do. And then I almost kind of like role play them as those characters. So yeah, it's actually really fun to do that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that since we are playing a superhero game, I turn XCOM into superheroes too. So anyway, that's what I do with XCOM, and I find that very enjoyable. All right, this is another defeat all mission, so we have to crawl through the map finding everybody. Now, unless we fight a boss or something, we probably won't need to put them as defense on, and since we're having endurance problems, that's probably good that we don't have to. So we talk about education. I will try to remember to report to you guys how many it is. I have a class of about 40 students in my zoology class, and out of these 40, probably 25 of them have a D or an F right now because they've just not been doing well. And a bunch of them have been complaining. They feel like I need to quote unquote give them more help, although I have given them a lot of help. And they said reviews would help. Can you do reviews? Well, there is built into the year, into the semester, there was a review before every single exam. But then we had a bunch of snow days, and I had to take one of those review days, the one for the second exam, away. I didn't want to do it, but it was the only way to have enough days in the year to finish the course. And I guess in retrospect, maybe I should have left that review day in there and taken the review day before the final exam away or something like that, because it's review day, exam, review day. Maybe we don't need those two. I don't know. I didn't want to take the review day of the first exam away because that was the exam that got all messed up from the snow days. So I don't know. Like, there's no right way to do this. Anyway, we're having a review day tomorrow. We're just reviewing. We finished the topic. We did a little bit of review on Tuesday after we finished the last topic. And now tomorrow is going to be strictly just a review for the exam. So the question I have for you guys is, go ahead and post in the comments, out of 40 students, how many do you think are going to show up for the review? Now, a bit of a bias or whatever to the possible result is they have unannounced quizzes. There are 12 total. There are 4 exams, so I told them there's going to be 3 unannounced quizzes for each module, right, for each exam. And we still have 1 to go. So I kind of have to do it on tomorrow, which is a Thursday. I kind of have to do it. And I basically told them that I was going to do it because they said, but it's on an. Oh, you're telling us? We thought it was unannounced. I said, well, yeah, it's unannounced, but you know I have to do it because we need 1 more quiz before the exam, and that's the only day we can do it, right? So yeah, there's going to be 1. So they do know there's a quiz, so you can use that to calibrate your prediction. These students who know there's going to be a quiz and know it's going to be a review, and a lot of them have been failing or getting D's, which is just as bad, on their exams. So they need, and they've been asking for help. How many are going to actually show up? So go ahead and make your predictions, and we'll see if you're right. My experience with this, I'll give you a little bit of help. My experience with this is that the people who most need the review never come for it. And frequently the people who most ask for these sorts of things, then when you give it to them, don't take advantage of it. Right? I am doing guided notes with my group now because they asked for something, and I said, all right, I'll give you guided notes. So they're also called skeletal notes. But I don't like that name, so I call them guided notes. It's basically you give them the outline and they fill it in. Right, so my learning objectives say be able to list the shared derived features of all the taxonomic groups we studied. And the learning objective, and the guided notes will say for class Agnatha, the jawless fishes, list the 3 shared derived features, right, on this side of the paper, and then it's 1 blank, 2 blank, 3 blank, and you fill them in. So the reason I don't give guided notes anymore, I started doing it now because, you better put this on. I started doing it now because they were asking for help, and I said I got to do something, right? Because I have to be able to show the administration, if they complain, that I tried to do something. We're still getting knocked down even with this on? It doesn't have knockback defense? That's going to be really annoying. I have to show them I'm doing something, so I gave them the guided notes. But the reason I don't do them anymore, because I was doing them for all my classes, and I stopped doing them. And so the reason I don't do them anymore is I used to teach non-majors environmental science. And that's where I did the guided notes, and I had the students turn them in, and I checked them. This is very labor and time intensive. The students turned them in, and I would check them. And then if they were incomplete, or if they didn't have the right answer, I would flag it and I would say, you need to review this answer because your answer is either incorrect or incomplete. Please check, page 30 and 35 or whatever. This is super labor intensive. And what I found was it wasn't really helping those students, right? All the students, I started paying attention, all the students that were giving me incomplete guided notes that indicated that they weren't doing it properly, they weren't taking time with it, they were just scratching something out into each box so that they would get the check for it, because they didn't have to be right. I said, I just want you to turn something in so that you're actually doing it. So they're just writing gobbledygook, and that's a waste of my time to read. But I was still doing it in my non-majors class. And then this one young lady who was a bio major, but for some reason took the non-majors bio, the non-majors environmental science, she then took me for my majors class, which was ecology, right? And I don't have guided notes in that class because they're, juniors and seniors, and I figured they didn't need it. So she said, at one point, they weren't doing well. How come you don't have guided notes for this class. And I said, well, I figured you guys, she said you had them in environmental science. I said, well, environmental science is a bunch of freshmen and they don't know really how to be college students yet. And I'm trying to teach them how to take notes. I figure you guys don't need it. And she said, and several of her classmates agreed with her, yeah, we do need it. Can't you please? So I went to the trouble of making guided notes, which takes quite a while to decide what to put in there and how to word it and how many blanks to leave for them to fill in so they can learn from it. And I did guided notes for the entire rest of the semester. And everybody bombed the next test. And I'm like, how come the guided notes didn't help? Out of curiosity, let's see who used them. And I don't know who used them or not, but in our learning management system, you can see who downloaded it. And in a class of like 50 students, only like 5 or 6 people were downloading the guided notes, and it was the people who were already getting A's before I posted them. And in particular, and this is the thing that made me go, I don't know why I'm doing this, the young lady who asked me for the guided notes never downloaded them after I posted them in response to her request, right? So then at that point I start to say, what am I doing this for? The kids who need them aren't downloading them, and the kids who are downloading them don't need them. This is just taking up my time. So I went to them and said, you guys aren't downloading them. And their answer was, well, because you're not grading them. And I said, but whether I grade them or not, it should be helping you. And I told the biochemistry / Bio 1 professor, and she runs the Bio 1, and she said, oh, I got the same thing from students. She said, she asked her students at the end of the semester whether the guided notes helped them. And she was collecting them and grading them and giving them points. And they all said, yes, the guided notes helped, and we did a lot better on the exams thanks to the guided notes. But they said, you've got to make sure that you grade them, and they have to be turned in for points. We won't do them unless you give us points. And she said to them, this is, they were talking about it in class, and she said to them, but didn't you just say that you did better on the exam when you used the guided notes? And they said, yes. And she said, then why do I have to grade them? Why don't you just do them because you know it'll make it better, it'll make the exam better? And they basically said, we know it will help us, but we won't do them unless you give us points. So keep that in mind. That attitude is prevalent in this current, it's not just my college, current generation of students. Keep that in mind when you think about whether you think that these students are going, how many of them are going to show up. The other piece of information I will give you is that there is a non-trivial number of students who have a 0 on every quiz all semester long. They've just never come, at least in time for a quiz. I had one young lady email me complaining. I reported her as failing because she's failed 2 exams, and we have to do progress reports. So I put a progress report out, and the progress report requires us to put the number of absences in. Well, I don't record attendance every single day, but what I do is I count them absent if they don't take the quiz. So she was really mad that I marked her absent 4 times, and she said, I haven't missed 4 classes. And I said to her, but you've missed 4 quizzes, right? And I mark you absent if you miss the quizzes. And she said, oh, I'm there, I just come late, and I haven't been able to take the quizzes because I come in late. So just keep in mind there are some people who are doing that. And so I don't recommend saying you think 0 people are going to skip, or that all 40 of them are going to show up for the review, because I know they won't. I won't even be able to get all 40 of them show up for the exam. There will be at least 2 or 3 people who will say after the fact that they had some emergency and they couldn't take it, and can't you please give us a makeup. There is some superstition out there, and there has been the whole 20 years I've been teaching, probably longer. There's a superstition out there that if you can somehow convince the teacher to give you a makeup instead of the exam on the original date, but give you the exam at a later date as a makeup, you will somehow do better. And you're probably thinking, well, that's because it gives them more time to study, but all the evidence I have is that they don't use the extra time to study. In fact, there was a professor from India who's retired now. He had an office right next to mine, and I was giving students I had just started, and I was giving them really the business about I can't give you makeup unless there's documentation, and I guess he overheard it. And he came into my office and he said, "You don't have to do that." And I said, "What do you mean? They have to have documentation." He said, "You know what? Yeah, the department says that, and that's sort of our policy and everything." But he said, "You know what?" He said, "My experience is that these students don't study, and the ones who are asking for makeups, they're going to fail." So he said, if they want a makeup, I just give it to them. They fail anyway, and then I don't have to deal with the whining about not taking makeups and stuff. And I said, well, what happens if you give a student a makeup and they get an 89 on it? He said, well, then they probably would have gotten an 89 on the regular test too. So I don't really care. So he didn't bother with all of that. He just gave them makeups if they wanted it. Now my problem with that is I know these students, and if they know that I will freely give makeups, I don't mind giving a makeup. The problem is if I have a 40 student class and 25 people don't take it on the scheduled day in the classroom, then I have to schedule 25 different individual people to come into my office for an hour and a half long exam to take a makeup. I don't have that many hours in a week to give them all makeups. He was dealing with, we had a smaller major back then. It was half the size it is now. And he was dealing with a much smaller number of students, right? You can do that in a 16 student class when 5 people miss, maybe. But you can't do it in a 40 student class when 25 people miss. There's no way. So I will give students makeups without documentation, but it's at a 10-point penalty for lacking documentation, and then 10 points a day. And if you don't have documentation, it's just 10 points a day. Now, if you have documentation, one of my students emailed me today and said she's been sick with salmonella. And in parentheses, she wrote, "Not fun." And I can well imagine. And she usually comes to class, so at this point in the semester, after 2 months of her mostly coming to class, I tend to believe her. And she sent me a doctor's note and everything. So now, if she's out for a week, and she's out for 5 days or something, then she can take the makeup exam when she comes back, no penalty. Now, if she doesn't take it within a day or two of coming back, then my syllabus has rules for you now are going to start taking point penalties per day, right? Because you can't, if your doctor's note covers you from March 5th to 10th, and you come back on the 11th, but you don't take your makeup until the 20th, that's a problem now, because now you're milking it, right? Now you're just using the extra time to try and study or what have you. But as I said, there's not a lot of evidence that these students are actually studying when you give them the extra time and they take the makeup either. I had a student take a makeup one time and he got like a 17 on it. Like, okay, you obviously didn't study. But so far my record is the young lady in my zoology class who got a 5. That might be the lowest I've seen on an exam. Now, I have seen quizzes where the 0 is not a lack of taking the quiz, but the person actually got every single question wrong and got a 0. But that's super rare, and that's only for short quizzes of like 5 questions, because it's really, really unusual to have somebody take even a 10-question quiz and get nothing right. That's very rare. As you can see, we are having endurance issues. Those will go away as we get more slots and we put more endurance reduction on them, and as we slot stamina. What is this? Oh, this is where we're going? Loose shop up there. Okay. Also, the clockwork's hitting me with electricity, which drains endurance, is not helping. They don't do that much of endurance drain individually, but when you have a lot of them and they're shooting you all through the mission and you're already having endurance problems, they ain't helping. They're definitely not helping. I have to say, guys, I've talked about the different settings or games I might be willing to play. Having real trouble figuring out which one would be my first choice. Because what I've noticed, and see if you guys have ever had a phenomenon like this. What I've noticed is that whichever game I'm like looking into, oh, I just ran out of endurance again. Whichever game I'm looking into or learning about is the one I find I want to play. So if I'm sitting there looking through the horror companion of Savage Worlds and thinking about how I would run the bases and the headquarters and stuff, I'll be like, oh man, I really want to do horror companion Savage World stuff, cosmic horror. If I'm flipping through Call of Cthulhu source book or the Call of Cthulhu rules or something, I'll say, oh man, I would really wish, I hope my players pick Call of Cthulhu. Um, if I'm looking through um, Shadow Dark and thinking about Shadow Dark, I'm like, oh, Shadow Dark sounds so cool. I wish my players would pick Shadow Dark. And if I'm looking through Champions, I say, you know what? I know I said I'm tired of superheroes, but Champions is such a great game. So whichever one I've most recently looked through is the one I'm hoping my players would pick if they decide to pick any of them, any of the above. Honestly, don't know which one I truly want more because I have cool ideas for all of them. And then I look at all the Deadlands stuff I have and go, maybe I should just keep running Deadlands. But no, I think we need a break from it. And in fact, I did mention that to my players after we were done with the Bulls. I said, something to put on your um, something to put on your radar is that we have, probably 5 to 7, maybe 8 sessions of stuff left. So my guess is 2 sessions for the riverboat, maybe 1 session for maybe 1 or 2. That's 4 total. Finding the rogue ranger, then maybe 2 sessions to find the bullets for Jasper Stone. That's 6, and 1 to fight and defeat Jasper Stone. That's 7, and then 1 to do the ritual that ends everything. That's 8. So I'm guessing maybe 8 sessions, which for our group would be about 3 or 4 months. There's summer coming up, so if we don't finish it out very quickly, um, we might be going past summer and into September. But what I said is probably at the outside by around the end of August, we're going to be needing to make some sort of a transition. I said, if one of you guys wants, I told my best friend, your much threatened D&D campaign, if you want to do that, if somebody wants to take over, feel free. I won't be offended or I won't mind. I would love to be a player for a while. But I said, if you guys want to keep playing and nobody else wants to run or can run, I can keep running. But I said, thought I saw a boss over there, but it's just a cog. I said I'm going to need to change something, either settings or games. I said I love Deadlands. I've got more box sets of things with Deadlands that I want to eventually run, but I need a bit of a change, right? I need my creative juices need the every few years we need to change settings or game systems or something to get my creative juices flowing. And I mean, my creative juices are already flowing about Shadow Dark, and they're already flowing about ETU, and they're already flowing about Call of Cthulhu, and they're already flowing about Champions even. So, so yeah, I mean, any one of those games, I'd be happy to run. And so, where do you go? There he is. Runners are much less of a problem with this guy, I will say that. That's cool. Oh, yes, one thing I wanted to look at. Let's open up this power because I made some assumptions about it. Static shield. Resistance to endurance, recovery rate, teleport, hold, stun, sleep, but it doesn't block Knockback. Okay, well that's annoying because the big problem I've been having all along here has been the constant knockdowns. So does that mean that the other Mez defenses are another shield, or is that the only thing we have protection against? Grounded, maybe. Toxic endurance strain immobilizes there. Oh, and KB. Ah, we need the other one. Man, this is a very toggle heavy build. So we're going to need a lot of endurance reduction on everything. So we're going to need to prioritize that. Because we're already sucking wind and we only have 2 of the 4 toggles running. Now stamina will help. Single origin endurance reducers will help. But man, this is an endurance heavy build. Or is that a... That's auto. Okay, that's not so bad. So there's only one more toggle, the charge shield, that we don't have yet, and that one gives us more endurance. So maybe it's not so bad. And 4 toggles is a lot. But I mean, if he had combat jumping, it'd be 5, because you leave combat jumping running, whereas I don't really leave hover running. I only use it when I need to go up and down. So yeah, do you guys have this phenomenon happen to you where even if you're like playing a game or something, the more I read about or think about a given game, the more I want to play that game. And then if I start reading another game or thinking about another game, then I want to play that one. You know, even like kind of sick of D&D, but at one point I had a reason to look through my old 5th edition D&D books, and there was a sense in which I was like, gee, you know, maybe I do kind of hope my best friend runs D&D for a while, because I don't know if I wouldn't want to run it, but I don't mind playing it. As long as somebody else has the headache of running all of the weird crap in that game. Right, I can just play a rogue or something and not deal with all the stupid magic crap. I mean, my preferred classes would be something like a monk or a rogue, and not a type that does spells. I don't want to deal with spell slots. I don't want to deal with magic at all. I'm like, you other guys can deal with that. Preferably, I'll just play a monk. One with no magical abilities at all. Monks are awesome. Or I could play some kind of an assassin. That'd be fun. The assassin with a heart of gold or something. I could do that. Barbarian. I would love to play a barbarian. I would not mind at all. I actually have this idea for a female barbarian character that I think would be a lot of fun. But you know, it's really weird because my best friend had not made anything up yet at all, according to him. World, cities, towns, campaign idea, none of it. And yet knows enough about it that when I said I was thinking of making a barbarian, he said that wouldn't be appropriate. The whole class would not be appropriate for the campaign I'm thinking of. And I'm like, geez, I wonder what he's planning to do. Is he planning to do some kind of political intrigue? Because then I could see if maybe a barbarian wouldn't make sense because they're pretty much bulls in a china shop. But I'm trying to think of like what the heck kind of a campaign would a barbarian not be appropriate for? That's like saying a rogue wouldn't be appropriate or a monk wouldn't be appropriate. So I don't know. I think I told you guys I was thinking about like this really heavily honor-based monk. This idea of somebody who's been trained by Mr. Miyagi, you know, martial arts is only for defense. He won't attack first. He waits until he is attacked, which means he'll just give up his initiative if he goes first or something like that. But I think I said then, you know, and I definitely believe that I would not do that unless the other players agreed to it, because it could be very annoying if you have someone who won't make their character attack until they've been hit or something like that. It's definitely giving up some initiative and advantage to the enemy And I would not do it unless the other player said they were okay with it, because it will risk, possibly losing a battle here and there because I didn't use every opportunity to attack. So I definitely wouldn't do something like that without the agreement and approval of the other players. Man, I love this. The effects of this thing. It's so cool. And that gets us reward merits. We rescue Lou's family. Is that all we have to do? I guess so. Alright, guys. I think that's probably it. Let's call Lou. And we get some XP. We're halfway to level 17 already, guys. We got almost like an entire level this episode. That is pretty darn fast. Okay. Train station is the safe spot. So we'll come on over here. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes with the Sentinel.